Welcome to More Than Mindset, the only podcast that bridges the gap between spirituality and success. Go beyond the mind with clarity and confidence coach Kim Guillory and learn how to integrate your passion to serve with your skills and experience to create a business you love. Let's get started.
Hey guys, and welcome back to the show. I have a very special guest for you today. We have Missy Beavers. Missy is an integrative life coach. She has come through the program with me. She has a master's degree in nutrition. She owns a health food store in Northern California, and she specializes in reversing thyroid disease. Hi, Missy.
Thanks for having me.
All right. We are so excited about this topic. What do you think about reversing thyroid disease? Is this a big deal?
Well, yeah, I could talk about this all day, which we will. But this is a topic that's so close to my heart because I was diagnosed with Hashimoto's disease when I was 8 years old. So that's a form of thyroid disease that is autoimmune based. So the immune system attacks the thyroid. And it became my life's work to reverse my own disease and to find a solution. 28 years later, I have developed a program that reverses the symptoms of thyroid disease, and I myself no longer have Hashimoto's disease.
Amazing. I'm so excited about this because I know it is such a big deal. I've been in women's health and wellness as a health coach, life coach, and, here in my business, just doing ladies fitness, it's so much of it. What is your thought behind that?
Well, the thyroid is the most amazing gland in the body. And I tell people all the time, and it should boggle your mind, Kim, but every single cell in the body has a thyroid receptor on it. So that tells you how important this hormone is. It's needed by your brain, your heart, your lungs, even down in your fingertips. Every cell uses the thyroid. So when your thyroid is not working optimally, everything goes down. And I was listening to some research just earlier this week, and they said that currently in 2020, there's an estimated 200 million people with thyroid disease. But the funny thing about the statistic is they said, and half of them don't know they have it.
Wow.
And I thought, wow, yeah, I believe that too. And then the funniest thing is I was like, so we have 100 million people that don't even know why they're sick.
Yeah. Why they're so exhausted, right? Because that's the biggest thing. It's the exhausting symptoms, I think, that are the most painful.
Exactly. And that's what clients come to me with: a lot of exhaustion, weight gain, hair loss. And what's most frustrating is if you go to a mainstream medical doctor, usually they just check your TSH, and that's a reading of what your brain is telling your thyroid to do. So oftentimes you can have normal lab levels of that and still have some pretty significant thyroid problems going on. So that's why a lot of people don't even know that they have a thyroid condition. It's because the right tests aren't being drawn.
Right. I can relate to that for sure.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to bring you onto the show today to talk about not just this amazing stuff that you're doing. We're going to get more into this because I know for sure we can talk about it for days, for hours, we're determined.
Uh-huh.
But really what I want to talk about is your experience coming through the integrative coach program. Where were you before you came in, and how is your practice different today?
Okay. Yes, we could talk about this for 3 hours. I told you a bit of my story before about the Hashimoto's disease, and it shaped my career. So I went into nutrition. I'm studying nutrition, and that led me to my passion for gut health. And I landed in that about 5 to 7 years ago, where I just started intensely studying the gut. And that's where, I side with Hippocrates, who said that all disease begins in the gut. And in my study of the microbiome, which is the good bacteria that live on and inside our body, I found that they are the most significant piece of our health. So I began testing microbiome, looking at stool testing, and looking for the root cause of these autoimmune problems. In that process, I found a lot of imbalances in my own body. So when I treated those things, my thyroid disease started to reverse. My levels were getting better. I was cutting my medication down. And then when I just really focused on healing my gut, I reached a point where I was nearly off of medication. And I went to see my healthcare practitioner. She's an alternative practitioner, and I'd seen her for 15 years. She'd walked me through this whole journey and had prescribed my medication. She had done my labs the whole time. And I sat in front of her and I was telling her how frustrated I was because, I had nearly got off this medication. I developed this program that seals the gut and reverses the symptoms of thyroid disease. My clients were getting off their meds, and here I just couldn't do it. There was this last piece I couldn't do. And she looked me in the eyes and she said, Missy, how do you expect to stop taking thyroid medication if you don't even believe it's possible? And this was one of those moments in life. I call it the moment where you're sitting in the chair and the camera zooms out and shows you how small you are. Like in the movies where you see that you're just a tiny speck. And that was life-changing for me because I realized that I was doing all the things with the wrong thought. And my thought had been programmed by my doctors who said, you will never get off of medication. You will take this for the rest of your life. And that's what all of my clients hear is they come to me and say, well, my doctor just gave me this level of thyroxine or this Synthroid and said I'll have to take it forever. And that is a thought. That is a thought.
Same here.
Exact same thing. So that is the story that is being told to all of America. And what happened in that moment for me is I came home and my mom is a craniosacral therapist, and that is a lot of thought work. It's also it works with nerves and the spine and the brain, and it's a really beautiful profession. She did a treatment on me where we really just worked on that thought that I'll never get off thyroid medication. And when we got my nervous system and my thoughts aligned with this belief that I am free from thyroid medication, it was incredible. Within 3 weeks, I didn't take any. And I took my last thyroid pill of my entire life on Thanksgiving Day of 2018. And I've never looked back. I've given thanks every day that I haven't needed that medication. And it's because my belief and story now is that I'm free from it. And that launched me into the need to learn more about this. And I want to be very clear. There is a definite need for healing the physical hormonal imbalances in the body. That's where finding the root cause of the problem, sealing the gut, treating the supplements, prescriptions, there are places for that. But the piece that was missing for me was what my brain was doing in my body with the story I was telling it. So that's kind of where I went on the path of needing to learn more about the mind-body connection. And I came to Kim through a series of divine interventions, truly like the backest of the back doors. I had this thyroid program and I knew I wanted the world to know about it, and I didn't know how to do that. And I found Kim as a business coach, truly, to help me make that happen, to make this available to more people. Because we live in a small town, it's rural. I love my clients. I love assisting people here, but I knew that there's people beyond those that walk through the doors of my store that can benefit from this. And so I was searching for someone to do that, and I found Kim.
Let me say right here, do you remember when you first did? I was like, how did she get into my schedule? Like when you say the back door, I was like, I was in Dallas and my schedule was closed.
It was actually divine intervention.
Yeah, I believe you. This session came through and I was like, how is this happening? I remember checking out the hotel and staying in the room and, all of that. I remember the story specifically.
And then when we had our discovery call, that's the first thing you said. How did you even book this appointment? And I'm like, online. And then apparently you had disabled the link.
Yeah.
So crazy. So yeah, I've never had a doubt for a second that this was God saying, Missy, here's the next step. And Kim's going to take you to the next level. And that's exactly what happened with the integrative life coaching. It provided me with the tools to walk myself and my clients through that thought changing process, because I had the awareness of the need for it. And I had my mom with her training to help me do it, but I didn't have the skills to help other people do it. And now I do.
Yeah, there's not a whole lot of people talking about, we talk about mind body, but there's no one really talking about the mind body integration, that processing the old story, the emotions from the old story, so that we can truly plant the seed of the new story. It's like we keep trying to plant the new story from who we are now. Like we try to create new results exactly as we are with the old stuff. And, that's why for me, I was like, the whole 5-step process, I was like, it's basically a manual for living, like this whole body wellness. Like there was no guideline or tool set or like, hey, here's the model, here's the manual for how to create what you want. right? It was like, here's a new thought. Take on this thought. Go and believe this. But it was like unconsciously, that's the story that's running the show.
Agreed. And I think that with the training, I'm not ashamed to admit this, Kim, but what you did for me was you held me accountable to my personal method of dealing with changing thoughts is to bypass the emotion.
Sure.
And I'm a huge bypasser. I learned that through our training. And so what that means is I am aware that I have this thought that's icky. It's making me feel this way in my body. So I'm just going to pick a new shiny thought instead.
That's it in the mindset world. That's the whole reason this is called More Than Mindset.
Uh-huh.
We know about spiritual bypassing. Well, we kind of do. Some people do. Spiritual bypassing, right? It's like we kind of like, oh, but it's like, let me just carry my cross. It's just, they'll be better off where they are. Or we just don't want to go into that emotion of really feeling the discomfort of what's happening. And so we kind of like do it for that reason, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like we're doing it for spirituality. We're earning our graces. Like this is the cross we have to carry and bear. And, we give ourselves nice, flowery thoughts about it. So we see a lot of victimhood and martyr and people pleasing. And, this is where all that comes from that we kind of take from religion or take from some of the stories and we turn it into what I saw for myself was like martyrism. And I saw it happening in the coaching world, but it was mental bypassing.
Absolutely. And what I want to add to that and what I want to make really clear, because this is a huge piece of what I teach, is that creates a physical response in the body. The hypothalamus, pituitary adrenals, the HPA axis is what we often call it in the metabolic world. But what happens in the brain is we have these thoughts that are just bouncing around and they're energy. Everyone can agree. Thoughts are just electrical impulses. And we've got billions of these going on all day long. And there is a gland in the brain that takes those energies and it converts them into hormones. It's called the hypothalamus. And this is so interesting because what that means is if I'm living under a thought that I will never get better, that I have to take this medication every day, that there's no hope for me. Every morning when I wake up and take that pill and have that thought, that gland in my brain turns that into a hormonal response that creates a crazy cascade of hormones in the body. And that will lead to adrenal suppression, which affects thyroid hormone production. It all is tied into the same hormonal picture. And what we as humans have come to call that is just a feeling. So if I'm having a thought that I'll never get better, and then I feel like a heaviness in my stomach, or I feel a heaviness on my shoulders, or we call that depression. I feel depressed.
Right.
But it came from a hormonal cascade from your brain. And that is what I want to make so clear with everyone and with my clients is we have the ability to stop those hormones from messing up your endocrine metabolic thyroid system. And that is what I do in my program through a series of tools and coaching and what Kim taught me how to do through the Integrative Life Coach program. To tie that in with bypassing though, what I was doing was having that thought that I'll never get better. I was having the hormonal response. I was feeling all kinds of hormonal chaos in my body, obviously, because my thyroid was off. And what I was doing instead was saying, I believe that I will be healed in the right time, or I believe this thing that's bigger. And I was using my faith as a bypass, a shiny object to look at, instead of actually looking at the icky thought that's creating the icky feeling. And I call that with my clients, I call that putting frosting on poop and calling it cake because we all do that.
Yeah.
So,
and
yeah.
it's, in that same realm of speaking, it's the awareness, like, awareness is the healer. That's my take on it. And it's like, once we see it and we know it, we can change it. But then we walk around saying, I know, I already know that. I know, like I can see that. But we really don't, because if we knew, we would stop.
Exactly. And if we really knew it, then we wouldn't be having the feeling, which is the hormonal response.
We have a thought and then a sensation happens in our body, right? And then we have a thought about the sensation. That's where we spin at.
And it just keeps going and going and going. But yeah, I'm a big research nerd and I really love, there's research out of the UK showing how this actually happens in the brain and how hormones can originate from these electrical impulses. And where I work in the endocrine world, it's like, yes, we cannot just fix the problem with medications, prescription supplements. We've got to address why the hormones are going haywire. And it's our thoughts.
Yeah. So let's talk about how your practice was different, because you were doing this for how long before you contacted me?
15 years.
15 years. And you had a lot of breakthroughs. You created a program, you were helping clients, and then you kept seeing what?
Well, the same story told over and over again. People get temporarily better. The supplements help get them out of their temporary ditch. It helps for a moment. And then the problem returns. And I'd seen that in my own health where I would have these breakthroughs and, I'd try a different diet and I'd pull out these different things and I'd feel good for a month or two and then I'd backslide. And it's because the lasting change had not happened. And that's what the shift in the thinking and the neural pathways had not happened.
So the missing piece, once you found it, once you discovered it, first for yourself, right? That's how this is the hardest part for us professionals, right? It's like we think we're supposed to know everything. And really, the way we come to know it is through experience. Our wisdom comes through our experience, our knowledge, right? Through the understanding. So once you discovered the missing piece for yourself, and then you started introducing it to your clients, how did that look?
That looked like this. Hey, Kim, I know we've been working together for 15 years and you've had some really amazing breakthroughs, but we're still dealing with the same problem. So it's time we start to look at the root and where that's coming from and the thought process it's coming from. So that looked like introducing coaching to my clients, which I started doing last year. And it has been so amazing because people are having lasting healing now. And our conversations before used to focus on, okay, so how big can my serving of ice cream be? How bad can I be without actually being accountable? And now the conversation is about, why are we even having that conversation? Why are you trying to have a result without doing the action? We dig into the mindset piece of why things are not working because of the behaviors. So yeah, it's changed. My whole conversations are different now.
It's kind of like a done for good. Like, are you ready to be done for good?
Uh-huh.
We see this in massage therapy, right? We'll get the frozen shoulder like really free and, they're feeling good and there's no more pain. And then they get back into the same exact circumstance and then they come back again. And it's the same thing with the low back, with shoulder, it's the same. We know our clients and exactly what it is and we can fix it and we can untweak it. That's why they keep coming back. But then they go back into the same circumstance, into the same environment. And when we can bring in more of the awareness conversation and talk about the root cause, they can be released, liberated in the moment.
It's incredible.
Like done. And now we'll have to keep reminding ourselves, right? Because the neural pathway is so deep, it eventually will show up somewhere else. We just have to always be aware of it. And we're like, oh, there it is again. Oh, it's showing up in my relationships. Oh, now it's showing up in my finances, right? It's in my body. Uh-oh, I bet it's happening here too. But that awareness, is what I feel like is our greatest gift.
I want to talk about that because one of my favorite things I'm doing right now, Kim, you always say, and I say it too, the way we do something is the way we do everything. And like you said, those stories show up everywhere. And in my world, they even translate to what the bacteria in your gut are doing. And this is so cool because, there are 10 bacteria, parasites, pathogens, mold, fungus. There's 10 pathogens for every one human cell in the body, meaning that we're more germs than we are human. It is the craziest thing in the world. And the bulk of those are bacteria. And bacteria, they have personalities, they have their own DNA, they have basically their own family tree. These bacteria are so personable to me, like they're living creatures and they're amazing. And they decide how our mood is, they decide how we digest, they decide our weight. They decide how much nutrition we get, if we absorb magnesium, if we're making vitamin K, what our B vitamins are doing. I could go on for paragraphs. But the bacteria, they're making all the decisions in our body. And the thing that is so fabulous and amazing to me is that our bacteria specifically respond to our thoughts. It is so crazy. So again, the UK, they've got some great research. They did some stool samples on women and they looked at the different bacterias that were present in the stool. And then they put them in stressful situations. And they looked at the bacteria again. And the good bacteria, the ones that keep you lean, help you with making serotonin and dopamine, help you have healthy skin, all those things that keep your immune system functioning. Those bacteria died when the brain was in a stressful state. And it is so amazing to me because that is the mirror of your thoughts. Your gut is the mirror of your thoughts. And the thing that I share often is that the brain and the gut, they're actually made out of the same tissue and they're formed at the same time in utero. So whatever's happening in your brain is happening in your gut. And those little bacterias are either dying or thriving. With mindset work, it is so important for me to include that in gut health as a whole, because I could give you probiotics all day. I could replace the good guys that are being killed off by your thoughts. But if you keep thinking those thoughts, well, then what are we doing here? What's the point?
And same thing with massage therapy, right? Or even yoga, or like we can continue to rub it out, roll it out,
Yeah.
right? Like
Yeah.
we can continue to iron it and move it but as long as they stay in the same story, it keeps materializing in
Hmm.
their bodies. Like I can use the word manifest or materialize, but it's like what we think, what we believe, we create an exact mirror of. We literally become it because we believe it. And so without touching this piece, without bringing this in, this brings me to my next question for you, which is how do you see the client different in the way that the homework? Like I think about when we're talking about health issues, because I know this is such a struggle for a lot of health coaches. They can only tell them so much in the session, and then the client has to do the work at home. And
Hmm.
then I'll hear the coaches and they're like, they don't do their homework, they're not following through, they're not committed, they're not showing up, like all of that stuff. But I truly believe it's because they don't have the awareness and understanding of how to help themselves on the level that we work on with the integration. And I would just ask you, like, how are you seeing the difference in that? Because I know this was a big proponent of yours, right? They have to do so much work at home, but
Yeah.
without having what you're teaching them now, how is that different compared to the results they're getting today?
Okay, so this is a big part of my program. And I found the same problem and that same complaint where I was meeting with clients once a month and they weren't doing the work. They didn't have the support. They would have the breakthrough in the session, but then what do I do now? So there's 3 steps to my program. It's a 16-week program. And step 1 is to seal the gut because we know that leaky gut has created these issues. It's these rogue bacteria have created leaks in the gut, which allows autoimmune disease, thyroid disorder, all those things. We start there, we seal the gut. Then we kill the loud conversation of the bad pathogens. So I call those teenagers. It's like we have this giant family reunion in the gut, and there's good and bad bacteria. And it's just a family tree, and all bacterias have a purpose. And some of those are just to annoy and cause problems, and some of them really need to help us. And we just have to get each bacteria doing its correct job. And so I always tell people, we all have that annoying and loud person in our family that if you have a party, they're going to go around and unscrew the salt shaker lids and just, wreak havoc. But they're still part of our family and they belong. And keeping our bacteria in that same mindset of they can stay, we just have to teach them how to do their job correctly. So step 2 of the program is that it's teaching the bacteria, and if anything else comes up, we look at mold, pathogen, parasites. We look at 300 different things that could be wrong. And we just teach them how to behave correctly. Step 3 is my favorite, and that is where we do the mindset coaching. So this is 12 weeks of the program, and they're weekly calls. And what we're doing is we're looking at a new concept every week. And like bypassing, I mentioned that earlier, that's something that's part of the program. We look at blame. We look at buffering. We look at all kinds of things that people use to get out of feeling a feeling. And we learn how to feel feelings and how to process emotions and essentially how to get your brain to not make hormones that destroy your thyroid gland. That's what this is saying. And it's giving you the freedom and the power to control your own health. What that looks like, though, is it's weekly calls. And I do 6 pre recorded calls and 6 live calls. But then during those weeks, you are doing something every single day that is looking at what we talked about. You are reporting back to us. We have a chat feature through the app. I've created an app that goes along with it. And so we're chatting, we're looking at mindset. I love this part of the program because the conversations are no longer, would it be so bad if I went out and I had a cupcake today? They've turned to, I'm having so much anxiety right now because I realize I'm having this thought. And we're able to walk through it and talk about it and realize that, all these other things that we thought were the problems never were. It's just our thoughts about them.
It's the tools of self-help that we weren't given. It's like
Exactly.
the whole entire program, this whole integration piece, it's really about how can we teach coping skills so people can help themselves and become personally responsible for their results, period. Like, it's just a missing piece. Too bad we don't have a college for it, or we don't have it. It's not part of our education. Or I would say, what do you think is the percentage that people learn this in the household?
Like 0, but I need to put a plug in for Jesus because he's my favorite guy.
Yeah, we're
And
going to get to that.
well, can I plug it in right here?
Yeah,
Because
yeah, for sure.
that's what we're teaching here is what Jesus taught us in the Bible. When he did the Sermon on the Mount, he taught that the old way of thinking, the law of Moses he was referring to, was to just not do the action. So he taught, don't commit adultery. Just don't. That was the law of Moses. And then Jesus says, I'm the new way and I'm the new way of thinking. And I say, don't even think about another woman because then you're going to lust, which is a feeling. So don't even have a thought because you're going to have a hormonal response, which is a feeling. And then you've already committed the action, which is adultery in your heart. So I really loved, Kim, what you teach because it's that same concept that our thoughts determine our feelings, determine our actions, which lead to a result. And Jesus tried to teach us that in the Bible. And so many of us get it wrong. We just focus so much on not doing the action. I'm not going to eat the cookies today. I'm not going to do that thing. And he's teaching us there that it starts with the actual thought.
Yeah, and I love something that you brought up a few minutes ago about blame and bypassing. It's like if we didn't have anything or anyone else to blame, like if we just eliminated that and we really just said, how can I handle this? Like if there was no exterior person or thing to blame, like how would I take personal responsibility?
And it's scary. That is such a scary thing because it involves feeling so many icky feelings. Because I've done that. You've walked me through that process of saying, okay, no, you are responsible for you. Nobody can hurt you. That's my job. I choose how I think and feel about everything that comes into my life. And to be able to say, okay, there's no one to blame here. Ooh, that's a scary place where I have to take responsibility for
And it's like
all.
we have to grow up. Like,
I
is
don't
it
want
really me?
to.
Like, no, surely it's the government's fault. Surely it's
Surely
the
it's someone
weather,
else.
PMS or something.
Surely it's my 3-year-old.
How often do we think, because we've been told that it's just our broken body?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That was my story. All of those years, all of the medication, all of the testing, all of the surgeries. It was like, oh, just the cards I was handed. It's just what I was dealt. Like it was just how it is when you get older. And that was the story. And that is what people are hypnotized by. And that is what we are changing. We're like, no, that's actually not true. You
Yeah.
get to create. Like you get to decide. You get to change. Like Bruce Lipton talks about this. It is not your DNA. It is not your genes. It is not like it is your thoughts, your beliefs that are behind it. If you believe that's what you're going to have because that's what they had, right? How many of your clients think they have thyroid conditions because of their family?
Exactly. And doctors teach you that. That's the story that you hear.
I know.
But I latch so firmly onto the epigenetics and these topics and research about changing the way that your DNA is manifest. And that's kind of the point I was making with the bacteria in the body, because our DNA in our cells, it does make decisions about how we look physically. And there are definite things that they're linked to physical conditions. But what we know now is that the bacteria, they decide everything beyond that. And we can change that. We can do that, not just with thought power, but with supplements and probiotics and all those things. But thought power is the most important part because it's going to keep us from killing off our good aunts in the family, the ones that are reasonable and lovely and feed us good emotions, and not just listening to the wild teenagers that are running around in our gut and destroying things and telling us that we should be
Right.
depressed and fat.
It's like our unconscious being the toddler that's like driving us around and we're just letting it do its thing instead of us like, whoa, hold on. So I want to come back to the spirituality piece because this is so important. It's such a huge component of the program. And I know with our relationship together, because I remember when we first started, we're not bringing religion into this whatsoever, but everything I was teaching, you would like send me the text and the message and you were like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, like everything that you're saying. And I was like, how you do anything is how you do everything. It's reflected everywhere. And I don't know, it went on for a while. Do you remember that? Like you were just dropped into a whole nother level with you? Maybe it was a level of safety. What do
Well,
you
I
think?
think
Because
I think for me, yeah, I was raised with religion and it is such a deep part of my core of who I am. For me, it was okay, I'm going to find this reflected in everywhere of my life. And if Jesus said it, I'm on board. He's the greatest example of all things ever. And the thing with the coaching style that you use, Kim, is that everything is reflected in how the Savior lived his life and how he coached people truly with their thoughts and how he met people where they were. And the thing that I really love about the studying the life of Jesus and about learning that through coaching is that he never saved anyone from their emotions. And that is something I was doing wrong when I came to this program. And Kim, you were so good to point that out to me, is that I truly believed I could help people feel better, that I could cheerlead them out of a bad mood. Something that I could do would fix their bad situation. And I've now learned that no, it's their right to feel whatever they want to feel. They get to feel it. And every thought and feeling is valid. And Jesus taught us that. He met people exactly where they were.
and
And
lead
then
by example.
lead by example, exactly. And when you're ready to get out of that, here's a solution. It's
Yeah.
so beautiful.
And the other part of it is the emotional resolution that I think is, the spiritual embodiment, the mindset, and the emotional resolution, because that is probably the part that's causing the most damage, I would say, is that the story is locked in that emotional signature.
Hmm.
And that's what they're spinning and looping in, and they are seeing as truth because they feel it, so they believe it's true.
Yes. And so many of those stories come from our childhood. And, like mine was my story about my thyroid, for example, was being told by an 8-year-old girl who sat in front of a doctor that told her she was fat and worthless and would have to take a pill for the rest of her life. And then that same doctor continued to fat shame me and belittle me for the rest of my pediatrician years. And that girl was the one telling me the story, this 8-year-old version of me that just didn't have any other skills. She was the one telling that story. And I love her. And, part of my healing was explaining to her that it's okay to feel all these things by what that man said to you. And then welcoming her home. I mean, she helps me make decisions now. She's so much fun. I love 8-year-old me.
The emotional processing technique that I use, we often find these detached pieces of ourselves. I mean, very often sitting in the school desk in third grade or fourth grade, being shamed by a teacher or by a classmate, or, something happening in PE, or falling at recess and being laughed at and never getting off the ground. Like those parts of us, like we fragmented these pieces of ourself. And we're trying to move forward and to grow up and to go. And we need all of ourself. We need the wholeness. We need the embodiment.
Yeah, I love it. It's so beautiful. And that's what I walk my clients through, where the root of that emotion is coming from, which version of you is telling that story, and helping her understand that we don't need to tell that story anymore. We can rewrite it. We can change these neural pathways. It is so incredible.
So, I'm a big believer of we can heal our physical ailments, we can heal our life, we can heal our relationships with our thoughts. And sometimes it's the unconscious thoughts actually that we have to go and rewrite. And I'm also aware that many people don't believe this. And I'm just curious. I'm in Louisiana. The common theme is exactly what we were talking about earlier, the preconditioning, the generational patterns, and all of the stuff that we were taught. How is it in California?
I can't really comment on that in the vast population because I only work in circles of people that I think alike. I tend to like to work with people that work in the same mindset. And so I know there's a lot of resistance to that, but I don't put energy into that zone. I'm not going to try and convince people that don't believe in this. I just want to bring people I just want to bring people that are like-minded and that want to participate in the healing together, because I kind of walk both sides of it. I'm in the Western medicine world in the sense that I do have a master's degree in nutrition. We do use food. We absolutely use food in this program. We use supplements. You will stay on medication. If you're on medication, I cannot tell you to quit prescriptions. You're still going to work with a doctor. And I applaud and support that. I think that there's room for that. I did that my entire life. I still see doctors. The thing that crosses over, though, is that I also believe that we can heal ourselves and we do have the power. And so I think there's room for both worlds. I think there's room for attracting people that are ready, willing, and able and want to learn.
Yeah. Because once someone realize, this is one of the first questions they'll ask is once they are like, they notice the difference in their own life. And I use the words just from Louise Hay, right? That we can heal our life. And then they're like, well, how do I get my mom to see this? Or how do I get my, my sister-in-law to get this? Or how do I bring my coworker on board? And I'm like, you can't. You really have to focus on being the example, doing your own work, and then you can role model, you can lead, right? But as far as trying to exactly what you're saying, if we focus our attention on who doesn't believe, then that's exactly that fight and resistance that we're going to attract. But when we're focused on, look, we have the solution to this problem and we know it works, like it's worked for me, it's worked for these other clients, like, are you interested? And let those people come forward. And then by that example, as we create the impact and meet the masses, I think that is what's going to change things as a whole.
Oh, for sure. And I can give you an exact example of that because my husband has leukemia. And it's so funny because some of the backlash I get from people is, you teach all these things, you teach you can heal your body, and your husband has leukemia. And it's like, absolutely. And it is my best teacher right now. I love his leukemia, which is the craziest thing to say. He got leukemia 8 years ago and he got a bone marrow transplant. And we went to Stanford at that time and we did the whole Western medical model. A transplant is the most dangerous treatment in the Western medical world because they have to kill you through chemo and radiation. And then they make sure you're completely dead because they're going to give you the cells of someone else that will kill you. So we're going to get rid of you and we're going to give you new cells and we're going to hope your body takes these. The bone marrow transplant went great. We sailed off into the sunset. We had this beautiful life. We had to do IVF for my son because my husband was sterilized by the cancer. So we went through that, which anyone who's been through that knows that's a huge mental and physical battle. So that was a huge blessing, got our son. And then when my son was 2, he just turned 3, my husband relapsed. And he relapsed in a form that is not commonly seen. He's 1 in a million. His leukemia actually came back as a tumor, which is so rare. This happened last August. This is August of 2019. And Kim, the whole reason I needed to find you is so that I would have all of these skills for when my husband relapsed, because I was able to walk into this situation with a totally different mindset and one where I was looking for the blessings. I was looking for how this was happening for me and not to me. And one of the things that's happened for me has been opening an entire network of Stanford doctors who think like me. And, 8 years ago when I went, I had so much resistance for even nutrition. They didn't want me to do anything, quote unquote, holistic. But when I came back this time, attracting that energy, it is amazing. I have so many Stanford doctors now who I can talk to about this stuff, that I can email. I just met a doctor last week that we were talking about the microbiome and how the brain affects it. And there are people everywhere ready to share this message, talk to you. It's attracting it though. It's not looking for the fight to say, I know something different than you and it's better. It's saying, this is what I'm doing. Join me. It's incredible. And just seeing the shift in Stanford and the nurses too, because I was talking about, it's so great. We were talking when my husband was inpatient. He had to be in the hospital for a month. This was during October. We were talking about that your thoughts affect your feelings, affect your actions and results. And the nurses were having this conversation and we were just sharing this among each other. And it was so beautiful. Kim, you remember that. We talked in the group about a really odd experience with a psychologist. But anyway, yes, there is a shift happening in the world. And seeing that happen at Stanford, which is to me, the god of medicine. I love Stanford. Shout out to Stanford. I love Stanford. You have saved my husband's life twice. But the shift is even happening there. It's amazing.
Yeah, and it's so exciting to be a part of it. Like that's there, and what you were saying earlier, and I really want to get this to my listeners because this is one of the questions, even in like our More Than Mindset group, is when they're dealing with chronic pain and, just undiagnosed elements, and there's this fight and struggle. And that's kind of their thing, is they're like trying to convince other people so that they can believe it. Like if they can convince other people and get enough on board, then they can believe it rather than just becoming it.
Right. I went through that a little bit. I did. We all go through it. Yeah.
And I say, thank God we have an amazing support. Like our group, our community, so powerful. A lot of you guys were going through some tough stuff, even at the same time. And like seeing everybody really come out, and hold that space and us all have this tool set, skill set, the coping mechanism that we've developed through this process, and be able to hold that space all together through this. It was beautiful. It was a beautiful experience.
I agree with that.
So,
And also that I wanted to comment because, people look at my circumstances being extreme, that my husband has leukemia. It's an extreme thing. But my trial is not harder or more significant than what anyone else is facing. And
yeah.
being part of this community was really great for me to see the different levels of struggling and how everyone overcomes it using these tools. And it can be a seemingly minimal trial to some people, or it could be cancer to others, but the tool works on all levels. And I think that's the beauty of being in this community.
When you were talking about your husband and people were saying like this shouldn't be happening to you, right? Like you should be able to prevent this, right? Because of what you
Right.
claim or whatever. I was seeing this too with how we use coaching against ourselves. Like because we're a coach, because we know mindset, like we shouldn't have any kind of discomfort or
Yeah.
any negative emotion, or we're doing it to be happy all of the time. And it is the complete opposite. Most of the coaches are like, what did you do to me? You took away all of my bypassing, buffering stuff. Like, and now I just have to feel all of this. And like, yeah, we forgot to put that in the disclaimer.
Yeah. Put
So,
that in the disclaimer. You're going to feel like garbage as you grow.
yeah. And then you just get better at filling garbage and you
Yeah.
recognize that it is just the contrast. We have to have it. We have to have like the lack of, so that when we have it, we have appreciation. Like we need that as humans. That is the human condition, right?
Yep. Light
And I
and
think it's important to
darkness.
say that because I think a lot of your people that we're speaking to with thyroid, they are exhausted. They have tried a lot of things, right?
Mhm.
And it's like it eventually just kind of wears down on you so much. And it's like, should I try it again? I don't know. Is this different? And I really want to help you, like hold the space for you right now, for you to be able to drive that home on how is it different for that person who has they're 8 years in, 15 years in, they do think that they've tried everything. But you and I know that what we're offering here is different. This integrative approach is when someone says, I've tried that, I've tried everything, they haven't tried it from the new personality or perspective that we can take them to.
Yeah. I am that person that said, I have tried everything. I went as far as to get a master's degree in nutrition and buy a health food store because I had to keep up with my supplement addiction. I had to have them all there because I
Oh
was taking,
God, yes.
20, 30 pills a day and it wasn't getting better. And I identify with that emotion. When people tell me that, I'm like, I've been there. I know it. I felt it. And the difference with my program is it involves so many different levels. And one of the big ones, I'll get to the coaching, but the big one too is bringing in the latest data and the research because I am committed to that. I am committed to staying on top of the latest research, latest data. And the stool testing that I use, it's actually, this technology only came out last year. So it looks at the DNA of stool and that provides us with greater results and information that I've had access to up until now. So as the technology increases, the information increases, which allows us to build a better approach to finding the root cause. So that's the first thing that makes this program different is that we look for the root. And when you go to your doctor, that's not what they're doing. They're looking for the symptom. They're looking at this lab says that this number's a little bit off. And that is not looking for a root at all. They're not looking for a solution. And then they're giving you a prescription to cover up the symptom. So that is never my goal. My goal is to find the root, and we do that through our in-depth testing. The next thing is to fix the physical problem. So that is to treat whatever imbalances there are in the gut, to balance hormones. We look at several types of testing. And then the third part is this revolutionary coaching mindset management piece. Because, like I said, we can fix the hormones with a supplement, we can fix the gut. But if we keep letting your brain send out hormones that damage the gut, damage the thyroid, what did we really do? So that's why my program's different than anything else, is that we do all the steps of other programs in the sense of like, there are practitioners out there that will find the root cause, will give you a diagnosis, will give you the pills, will give you the diet, but they won't assess why those things went wrong in the first place. And that's the goal of coaching. That's the goal of the 12-week coaching process of the program. We're going to find it. We're going to find the thoughts that derailed you. We're going to find the stories that you've been living under that just may not be true anymore and aren't serving you. And we're going to rewrite the story.
Love it. Alrighty. So as we wrap this up, I want to give these guys an opportunity to know where to find you, what's going on in your world. Like, we'll put some links in the show notes so you guys can just go and look there. That'll take you directly to Missy. So let them know where to find you.
Okay, super. So this program, the 16-week program, I only run it a couple times a year because I just do a small group of women. And that is so I can give you the attention and I can give you the time to really help you find solutions. So I only enroll a couple times a year, and we'll put a link in the podcast notes to the webinar page. I do a webinar that explains the program, talks about the process. So the link for that will be in the podcast notes. Some of the stuff I talked about on here is in the webinar, but I go more in depth into the actual parts of the program and what the 16 weeks include. Come to the webinar, watch the webinar. I love having people come, ask questions. I'm so excited about this. And then you can find that also on the store that I own is called Health Habit. And you can find us on Facebook, and there will be links there for the webinar as well. Yeah, just find us, say hi, join us in our group, and I hope to see you guys on the webinar.
And for you guys who are in the More Than Mindset Facebook group, like Missy's in there. So if you just go into the search bar and click on her name, and then you can that might take her to some of the links also. Who's your person? Like, who we're calling out to specifically?
So that's such a great question. I will take anyone who even wants the help. So this program is geared towards people who have hypothyroidism, but some people, like I said, half of the people don't know they have it. So we're just looking at people that are dealing with hormones. They may be on thyroid medication. They may have problems with losing hair, weight gain, exhausting things. Just come. If you want to learn about how to change your hormones, come.
Love it, love it, love it. All right. Well, it was great having you on the show. This was some amazing information, guys. I hope you go and look Missy up and definitely catch her webinar and her Facebook page. What's happening at the store? What do you have going on there for those who are in your area?
Oh, the store is always fun and games. We've got detoxes available. We have microbiome testing kits. We've got all the things. So click online. We'll put our Health Habit page there as well. There's always things going on. And that's the other point that I want to bring up. You know, this program, this is where my energy and focus is on the 16-week program. But I've got a whole staff of people that are trained that offer other things because we want to give resources to people at all levels. So if the 16-week program isn't for you, well, we have other options. We want you to feel better, and we can do that in a variety of ways. So yeah, come and see us.
Alrighty, guys, that's a wrap for this week's show. Isn't Missy amazing? Like, I absolutely fell in love with her. She is so committed to helping people with this cause. Like, from the very first conversation we had, I knew she was my person. Like, we instantly connected. We had so much in common, especially in the health and wellness industry. And our clients were having the same problems. And I knew that this was the missing link. She knew it from the very first call we made that it was it. She took the work into her own life, and she became the example of it in her business. Amazing. So for those of you who are health and wellness practitioners and you want to bring this work into your practice to help your clients go deeper and get transformation that is permanent, then reach out. We will put a link in the show notes so that you can go and apply if you're interested in joining the next session. And that's it. I'll see you all next week.
Thanks for listening to this episode of More Than Mindset. If you're feeling stuck on your journey to health, wealth, and relationships, head over to www.portal.kimguillory.com to learn more about the portal. It's a membership community where we take this work deeper, apply the concepts, and coach around the tough stuff.